morning, everybody. I very much appreciate that you get up so early and you come to see me speak, especially the morning after the bank holiday. So thank you so much for being here. It's not every day I get dressed up in all glam at 8 a.m. Usually when I speak, I have like this little trick that I use so I don't get too nervous, but today actually I have a microphone in my hand and a clicker in my hand, so I can't do what I always do. So I thought, well, I'm just being honest with you. I do public speaking for a living. However, usually it's in a professional context. I very rarely talk about myself, so this is all a bit out of my comfort zone, so I am a bit nervous. And I'm pretty sure that quite a few of you felt quite nervous this morning as well. Social anxiety, anybody, especially when it's over a cup of coffee rather than a glass of wine. So I thought, rather than pretending, I'm just going to show you something really quickly, a little tool that you can put in your own toolbox before we dive into this, actually. And I'm just going to put it away for a second, but I hope you can hear me anyway. I don't have the loudest voice, but I think it's going to work. So I want to show you very quickly something that instantly regulates any kind of nervousness and anxiety, and it's something you can use anytime, anywhere. And I'm just going to show you, all you need is your hands. And what I'm going to show you is a modality called havening, which is a psychosensory modality that will get rid of any kind of emotional overwhelm. So you can just follow along if you want. And you put your left hand on the right shoulder, right hand on the left shoulder. It's much easier than it sounds. And then you start stroking from the shoulder to the elbow in one direction, just like that. That's right. At a pace and pressure that feels right to you. And what's happening here right now is that you are actually creating delta brain waves, which are very relaxing. You can probably already notice just from a few seconds how nice this actually feels. You can also do it in the face, and if you think about it, I mean, what do we do when we get nervous, right? Or when we get stressed? We rub our forehead. So it's not rocket science, it's really just becoming aware of how we can use things that we already have for our advantage. And now the public-friendly version, my favorite version, you can do this anytime, anywhere, is simply rubbing your hands together in a circular motion, which is usually what I do on stage, but because I have my hands full, I actually can't do it. So this one you can do in a conversation, difficult conversation. You can do that in a meeting, on the table, under the table. It doesn't matter because nobody actually knows what you're doing there, but what you are doing is you're regulating your nervous system. So I feel much better. I can breathe in my corset, which helps. So let's dive into it. Welcome to the Punk Principle, and my intention today is really to give you a bit of an idea what being punk means, and also give you some real practical advice, tips, and tools that you can take away with you today, so you can also step into your punk even without the crazy hair and the tattoos. So, as you can see, I've always been pretty punk. That's me in 1992. And just to be transparent, Stephen just asked me, what's your favorite punk band? I've always been more of a rocker metalhead, really, as you can see. But I think you get the gist. And when Truth and Laurina asked me to speak, of course I said yes. It was also the very first time ever that I looked into punk. What does it actually mean? And I was very surprised to see that all of the definitions out there have a negative connotation. So the least negative I could find was this: expressing opposition to authority through shocking behavior, clothes, and hair, and listening to fast and loud music. I mean, fair enough, that sounds punk, but it's very, very superficial because there's so much more to being punk than that. And for me personally, and also for Truth, or Laurina, there is nothing negative about being punk. And punk for me really stands for, of course, the rebellion against the expectations, against the norms, but it also means the ability for independent thought. It means the really radical acceptance of otherness, whether that's within yourself or other people, and it means living a life true to yourself, regardless of all of those preconceived notions of who you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to do. So my very first punk act, actually, as Truth already mentioned, was actually at my birth, because it was a medical emergency at 7 months, and the doctors didn't think that I would make it. So that was the very first time that I defied the odds. And that defiance is a thread that has me throughout my life until today. Now, I grew up in the Bavarian countryside in Germany, so quite traditional. Otherness wasn't really welcome, but I was always a bit of the odd one out. And to tell you the truth, I never really minded. I always quite enjoyed being different. I always quite enjoyed pushing buttons, getting reactions out of people, proving people wrong, which is still something I very much enjoy doing, judging a book by its cover and all. And, my sort of rebellion took very different forms. So I had my first tattoo when I was 14 years old. And nowadays it's not that shocking anymore, really, but we're talking about 30 years ago. So that was like a really bold act of punk, a bold act of rebellion, because back then nobody was tattooed, really. I would also rebel with things like riding a motorbike. I wasn't supposed to ride a motorbike because I was a girl. And my mom said, oh, she can ride a scooter. And my dad, who's actually a biker, he said, no, if she rides anything, she's gonna ride something proper. One thing that I actually didn't know, and I only found out much later, is that he had the suspension lowered on the bike, so I was actually able to reach the ground barely, as you can see. But he made it actually possible for me to ride the bike that I wanted to ride. And that's a very important fact, because we can be punk, but the reality is we can't do it on our own. Now we'll get back to that in just a little bit. Now, in 2005, I felt like I needed to spread my wings. I knew that I didn't go anywhere, if I wouldn't go anywhere if I stayed in Germany being who I was. So I decided to move to London. I didn't know anyone, I didn't know anything really. So with my hand luggage, I moved to London, the capital of punk really, if you think about it. And the very first thing I did when I moved to London was I turned my hair red. So as you can see, I've been very consistent in the last 20 years. And the thing with London was, it was so much more progressive, so much open, it embraced otherness. And it gave me opportunities that I would have never ever had in Germany in general, like not even in my little village in Germany, because of who I was. And of course I didn't always go against the rules. I actually played by the book pretty well, because I became a certified chartered accountant, a CPA, and I did my MBA in Oxford. But the thing is, I did it my way. And then I got a bit bored of London, and then came Hollywood. And I don't know if you have an experience in your life that very clearly divides your life into a before and after. So Hollywood definitely is that for me. And Hollywood is a very, very bizarre place. It's the most exciting, exhilarating, intoxicating, yet toxic, dysfunctional, and soul-destroying place you could possibly imagine. And I'm sure Truth agrees with that. And I mean, to be honest, I think it's pretty damn punk to get yourself out of Hollywood in one piece. It really falls into this category of be careful what you wish for, because you may just get it. And I got bored of London, so I went over to LA, and I literally would walk around Hollywood with my CV, my resume in my hand, my accountant resume, mind you, knocking on doors to find a sponsor. Now, the thing is, I didn't knock at banks or insurance companies or finance companies. I knocked at the doors of record labels, of film studios, of music companies, because I knew they would actually appreciate somebody like me walking the door rather than a button-up accountant. And that's how I then actually got my visa to the US, and I moved to LA. And I had a very successful career in the music industry. I had a house in the Hollywood Hills, palm trees, sunshine, rock and roll. I mean, what else could you possibly want? So I literally felt like I was on top of the world until I got involved with the wrong man again. And I would later realize that it wasn't the first time, it was just the worst time. And that time, it will cost me absolutely everything. It cost me my job and my visa to the US. It cost me my house. It cost me my health. It cost me my sanity, myself. And it almost cost me my life. And instinctively, I knew if I don't get out now, I'm not going to survive the next 4 weeks. So I literally dropped everything that I had built for myself in the US and came back to Europe. And as a result of what had happened to me, I very much struggled with my mental health. I wasn't functioning at all. I couldn't work. I couldn't leave the house. I couldn't even go grocery shopping. It was horrendous. As you can see, there isn't that much punk left, really. And I don't have many photos of that time, but I think, you know, you can see what happened there. Now, I was very, very committed to getting better, and I would go to therapy religiously every single week. And after months, nothing changed, nothing. It actually, to be honest, got worse. And I don't know, if you're anything like me, if you put your time, your money, your effort, your tears into something, you want to see results, right? So I addressed this frustration with my therapist, and she said to me, well, unfortunately, that's what your life is now. And it's something you need to accept, and we need to find ways to manage it. Now, I was at a point in my life where I couldn't have promised you I'd be around tomorrow. So, no, that wasn't a state of being I could just accept. And that's when I went out on this mission to find something that could reverse the damage as effectively as it was caused. And the thing was, I was written off by doctors, I was written off by therapists, by friends. I was considered as a lost cause, broken beyond repair. But I knew something had happened to me that turned me into this mess. So surely if it goes one way, it's got to go the other way somehow. And I didn't know what I was looking for, but the thing is, I was at a point where I literally had nothing left to lose. And if I had died in that process of finding this something, I would have been okay with that as well. But of course my motivation was to live. And I did find what I was looking for, and within 5 months I was post-traumatic stress symptom free. And that's huge, right? That's a supposed lifelong condition. But then here I was up and running and functioning better than I ever had before 5 months later. Now today, Today, my pioneering approach is widely recognized as one of the most effective, structured, and masterful ways for the recovery from complex trauma. I've won a few awards. I get to travel the world. The last 2 years, I've spent 7 to 8 months of the year on the road, raising awareness about narcissistic abuse, but also offering a real practical solution, not only for survivors, but I also train medical professionals and therapists and coaches, so they can actually help their clients better. And I think by now you have a bit of an idea that actually there's so much more to punk than actually meets the eye. And those are just a few keywords that pop into my mind when I think about what being punk actually means. And of course you have the rebellion and that, but actually there's so much more to it. And you probably have some words popping up in your mind what punk actually means to you, because your punk isn't my punk, and my punk isn't your punk. Being punk is something that's very, very individual to each and every one of us. So feel free to add to that list for yourself. Now, Truth actually asked me, Ronnie, how do you know that you're punk? And that question really confused me, because I had never thought about it. This is me, you know, like this comes naturally to me. So But of course, it's a very interesting question. So I had a little think about, how do you actually know that you are punk? Well, first and foremost, you do you. Unapologetically, you do you. And that, of course, is not an easy thing to do because we have all those people around us. We have society. Everybody tells us who we are supposed to be, what we are supposed to do. However, once you step into your own path, everything will change, and it's absolutely possible. So you do you. That is the most punk thing we could probably do. What happens when you do is that you actually like the person looking back at you in the mirror. And believe me, I've been on both ends of that. Like, I had times where the mirror was my worst enemy. Nowadays, when I walk past the mirror, I probably give myself a little wink or a little smile, you know. And when you are in your punk, you also feel very content within yourself. And that is a very different experience to the superficial pursuit of happiness that a lot of people engage in. If your contentment comes from the inside out, that's a complete game changer. And of course, that also, you know, comes with authenticity. When you are pumped, you know exactly why you get up in the morning. You have energy, you have motivation, and you have this fire in your belly. And because of that fire burning in your belly, it actually doesn't matter anymore what anybody else thinks or says. You basically become immune to rejection because it doesn't matter. You do you, remember? So you're being very authentic from the inside out. Rejection doesn't matter anymore because, you know, it's literally when you step into this authenticity, you're not going to go back from that, ever. And what also then happens is, when people tell you something, you don't see it as criticism anymore. You take it as feedback and you go like, oh, thank you so much. Let me incorporate that because I can do whatever it is that you're doing even better. Being punk also means that you believe in yourself, a healthy self-belief, and you are in control of your life. So life doesn't just happen to you, you are actually the one who makes life happen. And that's a very, very empowering place to be. Now, let me introduce you to my punk principles, and that's something you cannot find anywhere. I literally came up with this for this event. Again, it was something I've never thought about before because all of this comes naturally to me. But I would like to share with you some practical things that you can implement pretty much straight away that will make it easier for you to step into your own otherness, you know, to embrace your own path. And the very first thing is give yourself permission to be you. Again, not an easy thing to do. The reality, however, is nobody else will give you that permission. And you may be looking for a partner who tells you that you are okay the way that you are good enough. You might be looking for that validation from a job or from anywhere else. The reality is nobody can give you that permission but you. So I would like to really invite everyone who's sitting here today to give yourself that permission. Allow yourself to be you. And even if you just play around with it a little bit, you will very instantly notice how things start changing around you. Surround yourself with the right people and be careful who you share what with. I cannot stress enough how important it is to have the right people around you because it's going to make the whole difference. The reality is that most people don't get you. They don't get what it is that you want to do, whether that's a business opportunity or an idea that you have, whether that's traveling the world, whether that's some health stuff you want to figure out. People in general don't get you. But there are people that actually do. And that's a whole different way of being because when you find those people, all of a sudden you're weird. Isn't that weird anymore? And last week I had a conversation with Joao, and we both walked away. I mean, I'm mind reading the mind reader right now, but we both walked away feeling really good about ourselves and what we do. We felt inspired. we felt understood. And that is a complete game changer, because if you have those kind of people around you, anything becomes possible. And that also goes in line with be careful what you share with who, because people always project their own map of their world onto you, right? So they come from their own beliefs, they come from their fears, their insecurities, but the thing is, all of those things are not yours, right? But we all have been in a situation where it was, draining our energy, because when we talk to the wrong person about the wrong thing, we start, finding justifications why we do what we do. We start finding excuses. We need to explain and explain. There is no explanation necessary. You just do you. And I'm not saying you've got to cut out all of those people, unless, of course, somebody makes you feel really shit. If somebody makes you feel shit, they got to go. And I'm very cutthroat with that at this point in my life. But just most of the time, it's enough to just change the conversation. Talk to them about the weather or anything else that they can relate to, and leave the important stuff to somebody who gets it. And another thing that's very important, having the right people around you, is just because we are punk doesn't mean that life doesn't apply to us, right? Life always happens. And sometimes it can happen that we forget temporarily how punk we actually are. And that's when it's important to have people around you who can hold your punk for you. And it happened to me last year. My health wasn't very good. I couldn't stand myself, to be honest. And I really forgot. And then I had, luckily, people around me who held that for me and also gave me a bit of a kick in the butt, so I would remember how punk I actually am, So very important. Thank you, Mel. And really utilize those kind of communities that you have here. Creative Mornings, incredible community, inspiring, empowering, uplifting. Really make use of it. People of Lisbon, it's all at your doorstep, and I would recommend everybody to really dive in there, because if you have your tribe, it makes the whole difference. Prioritize your well-being and self-care. Well, that doesn't sound like a very punk thing to do, does it? It is the most punk thing you can do for yourself. And it's actually really interesting if you think about how actually the definition of punk changes over time, because when I think about when I was a teenager or in my 20s, being punk was all about the external reaction, pushing people's buttons. Nowadays, my punk comes from the inside out. I very happily rock and roll to bed at 9:30 p.m. That's what's punk for me today. And also, a very punk thing to do is commit to your personal development and actually put the work in, because the thing is, nothing will just change by itself. And I know that there are people that believe, I am who I am, it's just how it is, and I couldn't disagree more with that. Because the reality is, we all have a programming running in the background, which usually is unconscious. It's based on how we were brought up, the experiences that we've had in our lives. And if something doesn't work for you, if you find yourself in the same trouble over and over again, if you actually stand in your own way, you can change that. And it's so much easier than you think. Now, when you think about your computer, right, you get this notification. Do you want to run an update? And you don't even think about it. You click OK, because you know the system is going to run better for it. And the beautiful thing is that we can do exactly the same thing with our own operating system. You can go and explore hypnosis. You can go explore neuro-linguistic programming, like super cool stuff you can do. And it's the biggest gift you can make yourself. So really invest and focus on your personal development. Don't adapt. I thought about this. It's a bit of a poor choice of words, because we need to adapt all the time, because everything around us is changing, right? So we do need to adapt. What I'm talking about is, don't compromise yourself, right? Stay true within yourself and don't compromise your wants and your needs, especially your needs. Your values, don't do that. just make it work for you, just like I did with the music industry, right? Rather than working at a bank. And if you fall, which can happen, it happens to the best of us, get back up and do it again, because always remember, there is no failure, there is only feedback. So this was me last week in London, and the thing is, when you step into your punk, reality is that there will be a lot of people around you, they're not going to like it. But the important thing to always remember is that's their problem. It's not yours. And I've literally been called every name under the sun for who I am, for what I do, especially for what I do. But I don't care, because I know why I do what I do. And I will continue to take my punk mainstream, reach an even bigger audience, make a difference to even more people. I started branching out into Germany, which actually is quite challenging, because even 30 years later, otherness is not very welcome in Germany. So it really is a fight to bring it across, whereas then we have other places where it becomes much easier. And the thing is, I've created a life for myself where I can do what I want, where I want, when I want, with whoever I want. And that, for me, personally, is ultimate freedom. Now, my biggest value is freedom. You may have a completely different value, highest value, right? But for me, I've created a punk life that is so authentic to myself. And the thing is, when you become authentic in who you are, your life naturally will follow. So I really would like to encourage everyone to have the courage and step into your punk and really just notice what you notice, because once you do, it's a complete game changer. I also want to make the point that I don't do what I do just because it comes naturally to me. Okay? So I'm actually an introvert, believe it or not. But I have this whole magic hat with tools and tricks that I use consistently, like the havening, for example, that allow me to do what I do. And there is one thing that I would like to share with you today, actually, and I'm just going to show you once, and you can use it over and over again. And it is how you can actually nick a quality or a strength, steal it from somebody else. Do you want to check that out? Yeah, how that works? Okay, good. It's a really fun thing to do. It takes a couple of minutes. And as I said, you can do it over and over again. So first I would like to ask you to think about a really punk quality, a punk strength that you would like to have more of. Yeah, everyone got one? A quality, a strength you would like to have more of. And then go ahead and think about a person who has that, a person that is punk in that way. And that can be somebody you know, it can be somebody you would like to know, it can be a celebrity, it can be a mentor, a role model, somebody you look up to. You all got that? Good. And then go ahead and take a deep breath in and close your eyes, or leave them open, but usually it's easier to close your eyes. And then go ahead and imagine that person standing in front of you right now. And if you're not a visual person, don't worry about it. Just feel their presence in front of you right now. And then go ahead and float out of yourself and into the person standing in front of you right now. And look out of their eyes. See what they see. Hear what they hear. Feel what they feel. Being this punk, having this amazing quality, really get a sense of how it is to have that. Notice how they're breathing. Notice how they're carrying themselves, their posture. That's very good. And make it really rich and vibrant, and really, really embrace this sensation of being punk that way. That's right. And then go ahead and float back into yourself, taking all of this with you for you to keep from this day forward. And then you can take a deep breath in, and you can open your eyes only as quickly as your unconscious mind has made all the necessary adjustments. Wide awake, refreshed, and alert. Welcome back to the room. Good. How's everyone feeling? Pretty pumped? Yeah? Good. Good. So I'm just going to leave you with those two photos here. That's me at 11 years old, and that's me now. And if there is one thing I'm really proud of, is that I've actually, despite everything, been able to give her, the little Ronnie, to give her a space in my life and to stay with this authenticity. And we are actually really good friends now. We hang out quite a bit. And as you can see, even 30 years later, we're still wearing the same t-shirt as well, you know. So thank you very much. That was my punk principles for you.